Now, the Shia, as you probably already know, and you'll learn in greater detail about their history, are a minority sect within Islam. They're about roughly 10% of the Muslims are of this 12 Imam or Shia group. And the term Shia means partisan, a member of, or not a member, I mean a Shi'i is a member of some partisan sect or group. Originally it came from the term the party of Ali, Shi'ite Ali, when it was a political dispute between Ali and Muawiyah over the affairs of the Muslims after the assassination of Uthman. Now, it's true that there were some early differences about who should have succeeded the Prophet ﷺ. Ali, although he didn't directly say that he should have been the Khalifa after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, he was upset that the whole matter had been decided while he was busy arranging for the bathing of the body of the Prophet ﷺ and his shrouding and burial. While all that was going on, the Ansar were meeting to decide which one of them should now be the leader. And when Abu Bakr and Umar heard about it, they went and joined them, and events required a rapid decision on that issue, and it unfolded that Abu Bakr was chosen. So Ali, although he didn't necessarily dispute Abu Bakr's eminence, he was upset that he hadn't been involved in the process of choosing a leader. And so he withheld his bay'ah for some time. And when he did that, he started to see all the Muslims around him treating him differently. They didn't like that. And so then Abu Bakr went to him, and they had a heart-to-heart talk, and they reached some kind of reconciliation. And so then Ali, he got up in the masjid, and he gave a speech in which he publicly declared his allegiance to Abu Bakr. All of the details of that can be found in narrations in Bukhari and Muslim. And those narrations say that the state of affairs returned to what it was before. Everybody then, the ice was broken, and people returned to their their original warmth and respect for him. After Uthman was assassinated, all of this fitna boiled over, and those who had assassinated him wanted Ali to be the new Khalifa, and he didn't want it under those circumstances, but the other Sahaba, senior Sahaba, advised him that he was the best man for the job. And he ruled for about 5 years, and it was a period of ongoing tumult, and eventually he was assassinated by a member of the Khawarij, and his son Hassan was chosen by the people in Iraq to be his successor. And after 6 months, he stepped down and turned the whole thing over to Muawiyah. And so after that, you have these people who had been in Ali's army, they've been on his side, they've been his partisans. There were people who were already, even during the time of Uthman, who were beginning to make exaggerated claims about Ali. And so what had originally been a political division turned into a schismatic division with very heavy religious overtones. So those people, or some of those people who had supported Ali, they ended up becoming they had a very different concept of the religion from the majority. And so eventually the Shia broke up into all kinds of little groups. The main split was between the 12 Imamers and the 7 Imamers, who are called, the 7 Imamers are called the Ismailis or the Batiniya. And these people were in their early era, they were extremely dangerous revolutionaries. I mean, they were always busy. Their whole goal in life was to overthrow the existing government. And they also had a belief system that is just completely out of Islam. That they believed in the Imams as having these divine powers, and there was nothing in the Qur'an or the Sunnah that could be taken at face value. Everything had a hidden meaning, and the outer meanings were not at all intended. That's why they're called the Batiniya, from this idea that everything has a hidden meaning. And the 12 Imamers were quietists. They didn't oppose the rulers openly, because they saw that there was no realistic chance of overthrowing them. When the Abbasids overthrew the Umayyas, there was a lot of Shiite participants in that, because it suddenly became a realistic possibility that someone from the family of the Prophet ﷺ would set things right. And just who exactly that member from the family of the Prophet ﷺ would be was left sort of vague when the revolutionaries were stirring the masses with their message. And eventually the Abbasids managed to ride that wave of Shiite support, among other elements of support. And once they got in power, then they made very rapid moves to make sure that there were no threats to their power from among the descendants of Ali. Anyway, so eventually you have these 12 Imams, that the 12 Imam are Shiites, also known as the Jafari Shiites. In Arabic they call them the Ithna Ashariya, the 12ers. They identified these 12 Imams, and their belief about the Imams was that they were on some level superhuman, that they had complete knowledge of all things, past and present and future. And they have a book called Al-Kafi min al-Usul, collected by a traditionist, a Shiite traditionist named Al-Kulaini. And he has narrations in there. They're all mostly attributed to Ja'far as-Sadiq, and some of those traditions declare that the Imams, they don't die except when they choose to die. Their death occurs with their will and consent. And another central aspect of their belief about the Imams is that they are preserved from sin. They're like the prophets in that way, Ma'soom. And because of their knowledge and their infallibility, then the Imams are the only religious authority. Everybody else after the Prophet ﷺ, their understanding of the religion is fallible, according to the Shiite, the 12 Imam or Shiite teachings. And so it's all a matter of supposition. Whatever anybody else says is supposition, whereas what the Imams say is the absolute truth. And therefore, when it comes to interpreting the texts. Their whole message in the beginning was that after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, the whole issue is one of interpreting the texts. And there's no one qualified to do that except the Imams because of their knowledge and their infallibility. And at every time, people are in need of someone who can give them an absolutely correct answer to any question that arises. So that was the whole basis of their call at the beginning. But unfortunately for them, after a while, they ran out of Imams. The 12th Imam, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, there's doubt about whether that individual ever really existed. Maybe he was born. Anyway, he disappeared as a young child, if he ever existed. And so, from our point of view, he must have died and been secretly buried. From the Shiite point of view, no, he went into what is called al-Ghaiba, occultation. He became unseen. He entered the unseen world. And for some period of time, supposedly he was in communication with his inner circle. And then after a while, the time stretched and lagged on, and then became apparent that this individual is nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found, and there's no likelihood of his showing up anytime soon. So they said, okay, well, now he's just sort of in this very distant realm of the unseen. He's still alive, and he'll be coming back one day, but in the meantime, he's not really very concerned with the affairs of... Yeah, he is, but he's not, this is... when you tell one lie, you have to keep patching it with other lies. Anyway, I have an extremely dim view of the Shiite. So, my prejudice, I'll lay it on the table right now. So, that's the primary issue around which their religion revolves. You have to believe in the Imams. And if you don't, your faith is not acceptable to Allah. Some of their other beliefs are that the prophets and the Imams will make shafa'ah, intercession, on behalf of their followers, their communities. A very strange belief, al-Bada', which we talked about earlier with regard to abrogation. They actually do believe that Allah changes his mind when things change. And my knowledge of exactly what their conception is of al-Bada' is highly missing in detail, so I won't go into it more than that. And of course, they're well known for their exceeding hostility to the Sahaba. With a very few exceptions, they consider the vast majority of the Sahaba to have been apostates, because they believe that the Prophet ﷺ, that Allah appointed Ali as the successor of the Prophet ﷺ, while not actually being a prophet, but that he was designated as a successor, and that the Prophet ﷺ made that clear to the people, and then the Sahaba, they understood it, and they disregarded it utterly. And because of that, they became apostates. And then to cover their crimes, they went about changing the texts. So this is a theme that crops up, and it hasn't ever gone away. It was a very, very visible feature of the early Shiite teachings. They were very upfront about it. After a while, they started to modulate it, and you see representatives of their thought who downplay that very much. But it's never gone away, and it keeps getting resurrected. Now, because of their political situation, because they posed a potential threat politically to the leaders of the Islamic political entities. Because of that, they were always under the eye of suspicion. And because of their exaggerated beliefs about the Imams and their hostility to the Sahaba, on a religious level, they provoked hatred and distaste from the Sunni majority amongst whom they lived. So from the point of view of just, keeping your neighbors off your back, and also from the point of view of keeping the intelligence services from arresting your members and dragging them off to dungeons, they practiced tuqya. That became a part of their doctrine, that if you feel that you're in danger, then you say whatever the people around you want to hear, and you tailor your message according to the circumstances. Because of that, we can see that there is a practical, historical reason for it, but because of that, you're never sure exactly where you stand with them, because this feature of their religion has been it's been magnified as a result of their circumstances, and because it's been a constant thing that they've had to keep in mind, it's left a permanent imprint upon the way they think, the way they talk, the way they act. So that's the 12 Imamers. There are other ones that, the 12 Imamers, some of their beliefs are definitely kufr, but scholars don't declare them disbelievers as a whole, because they say La ilaha illallah, and any particular individual among them, he grew up in a certain environment, and if he's not confronted with evidence in a way that he can understand it, it would show him the errors of his beliefs or the beliefs that he was taught, then to declare such a person a disbeliever, you can't really do that. There are other splinter groups like the Ismailis and the Nusayris and the Druze that really are disbelievers flat out. Their beliefs are so crazy and so far removed from Islam. They believe in reincarnation, and that the world keeps being recreated, like Hindu kind of concepts.